Hi everybody. I'm going to make a video where I show you how I mix colors. And before I do that, I'm also going to show you some really basic things like how I take my paint from my paper palette and put it onto a new palette, and lots of practical advice. So here goes. I'm at the point of my painting right now where I need to move to a new section. And when I'm painting, I open up my image on Photoshop. So that's why my computer screen's there. And this is the part of the painting that I'm going to work on next. So in order to do that, you can see that I have a little bit of a mess here, and I've used up all my mixtures of my paints, except for those little guys there. And you'll also see that I need to make some big batches of color because I'm going to be painting this whole area in here. So I like to use a paper palette, and the reason I like it is because it's not so much work, and you can throw the paper away when you're through with it. A lot of people like glass palettes. I have tried glass palettes. And they're great, but what I discovered was they're not so good for my hands. I have these little foam things that I use on paintbrushes and palette knives, and that's because I've got some arthritis, and the glass palette was just too rough on my hands, so that's what I do. I use the paper palette, and it's much softer and not as much scraping involved to clean the palette, because all you have to do is scrape off the paints. Anyway, regardless, let me show you what I'm doing here. On this side of my palette, I have all my warm colors. I've got Naples yellow, lemon yellow, cadmium yellow medium, yellow ochre, cadmium orange. Now I'm running out of some of these paints in here, and I'll tell you what they are as soon as I get them out of the drawer. This is cadmium red, and then I have alizarin crimson. So basically, if you are going to just buy the minimal amount of paints that you want to get, you want to have a warm and a cool of each of the primaries. So at minimum, I would recommend purchasing cadmium yellow lemon, yellow ochre, cadmium red medium, and alizarin crimson. Okay, now it's nice to have some of the extra colors, so you don't have to mix them. So at minimum, that's what I would recommend for the warm colors, because of course you can always mix the secondary colors and so forth. Okay, but the painting I'm working on right now has a lot of orangey red in it, a lot of peach colors, and it's just easier for me to use, have the orange already mixed up. Okay, on this side, the area I'm working on doesn't have a whole lot of cool colors, so I don't have a lot of cool colors on my palette right now. One color that I really love is this one. It's Old Holland Violet Gray. So that's this color here, and I'll put more out. This is a great color to use to dull yellows and oranges, because it leans toward blue. I mean, it says it's violet. But it really leans toward blue, and it's great for dulling dulling the oranges and sometimes some of the yellows, but it'll turn the yellow a little bit green. This color, I'll just use it. I haven't been using it that much in the painting, but once in a while I'll use this again to tone down maybe some peach. And that one is also a special color, and it's King's Blue Light, and again, these are Old Holland, and otherwise, type of paint I use is Gamblin and Williamsburg. So in addition to the orange, I like to use Venetian red. Now another color you could use, it's actually easier to use, is burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is a little bit more, it's way less saturated. This Venetian red is very saturated. Saturated means it's very intense, has a lot of pigment. So I would recommend, if you're just starting, using burnt sienna, which is sort of a orangey brown instead of that Venetian red. But anyway, I will continue here, and I'm almost out of if you're wondering what I'm rooting around in here, I have a little drawer on my table. So ultramarine blue is my workhorse blue. I use it a lot. Now, if I was going to be mixing some cool colors, especially some sky colors, I would also get out the phthalo blue. So ultramarine blue is a warm blue. It is great for mixing violets and purples. Phthalo blue is what you want to mix like a beautiful Caribbean blues, Caribbean sea, or what if I'm painting sky, I'll use phthalo blue. Also when I'm painting sky, especially a rich blue sky, I'll use cobalt blue, but for the purposes of what I'm doing right now, I really don't need those. Another color that I've recently come across that's very interesting is this color. It's called brown pink. It's neither brown nor pink, and it's made by Sennelier. And when I square it out here, you see it looks like kind of like an olive color. And if I water it down a little bit, it actually, there you go, it looks like almost a golden color. So it's very transparent. So paints can either be opaque, semi-opaque, or transparent. So something like this, okay? Naples yellow is an opaque color. White is opaque. All right, but something like this, and you can really see it, this brown pink is very, very transparent. These two colors here are also very opaque. Ultramarine blue would be more transparent. You can see here too that the alizarin crimson is more transparent than the cadmium red. Medium, that would be an opaque color. And so that's another consideration when you're choosing colors to work with and when you're mixing them. Okay, and that is raw umber. Okay, I used to use burnt umber for a while, and then I stopped and I started using raw umber because I can always make it warmer by adding some of the Venetian red to it. So chances are, as I'm mixing colors, I'm going to need to put a lot more paint out, especially some of the Venetian red there. I think I'm going to need more of that. Okay, and I'm going to need more raw umber. Okay, so I am not going to show you how to mix all these colors, but I'm going to show you my procedure for mixing some of these colors. Okay, now, one thing you can do if you have a good printer at home is you can print out your photos and you can work from prints. I work from a screen because I find it easier to do. Now, when I check my colors, I have Photoshop on my computer. So this is the photo that I'm using for the painting that I'm working on. And the painting is 36 inches by 48 inches. And the way I'm doing it is I'm working section by section. And right now I have about this much of the painting finished. So I'm going to be working on this section right in here. And here's what I do. I click on the F button a couple times, which is short for full screen. So I make that full screen. Then I click on Command plus to make this screen bigger. and I shift it around so that I can see the portion I'm working on. Okay, so the portion I'm working on today is right here. And I think that's a good size for me to see. Then over here, I'm pulling up my toolbar and I'm going to click here on the color picker. So I'm going to keep that color picker open. And what's great about the color picker is if you hover your eyedropper and click over different colors, you can see the color that you need to mix. Now, another thing that I do is I lighten up the screen 100%. And I do keep my computer plugged in while I'm working because it does use up a lot of battery power. But I keep the screen on 100% brightness, and I compare the color to white. And so for instance, if I'm looking at this kind of neutral color, when you're looking at it here, surrounded by this darker warm gray, it almost looks like a pink, you know, kind of a peachy pink. If you look here, you can see that it's really red-orange, and it's a tone of the red-orange. Now, here's how the color picker works. Along the top edge is the hue, the pure hues right there, and then these are all the tints, the color plus white. On this side, there starts with the hue, goes down to the shade, so that's the color plus black, and all of these different colors in here are the tones, which is the color plus black and white, so color plus different shades of gray. Now, the tricky thing with me is I don't use black to tone down my colors. I always use complementary colors to tone my colors down. So if this is a red-orange here, the opposite of red is green. The opposite or complementary of orange is blue. So what would be the complement of red-orange? It would be blue-green. So that's how you know how to tone your colors down using the complements. And then here's the thing that I figured out. I make these little cardboard strips, and then I put a little paint on that strip, and then I hold it up to the screen to see if the color matches, and that's how I match my color. And what I did was I bought a whole lot of these, these are strips where, like, if you had a child in kindergarten and they were learning how to, like, print letters, they would use this, and, you know, like writing the letter B, or, yeah. So I went on Amazon and I just bought a whole bunch of these strips where students learn how to print, and I cut them up. And so I have a whole bunch of these strips, and that's what I do. All right, so for instance, and then of course you need a palette knife. I like this shape best, the good old triangle shape. So now as I'm looking at that color, there is a whole lot of what looks like Venetian red, but if I just took the Venetian red, okay, like that, which I wouldn't do because I know what it looks like, but if I held that and compared it to that, it's much lighter. So I took some Venetian red, and I took some raw umber and mixed those together. And I do this automatically, but I'll show you what I'm doing. I'll slow it down. I scrape, and then I kind of smear like that. So I use the side of the palette knife to scrape like that, and then I just smear like that. And this kind of repetitive motion, it's actually very soothing, stress reliever. But you know, as you're building your skills, it's not going to be a stress reliever when you first start, but once you get the hang of it, you will definitely find that it's very relaxing. Okay, that's too brown. It's too orangey, a little too yellow. It looks like it should have more alizarin crimson, which is a dark red in it, and maybe a hint of ultramarine blue. Okay, now what I just did was I took the color, I held it up, And I asked myself, well, first asked myself, is it correct? And it was not. And then I asked myself, well, what is it to? And I like to call that the the Goldilocks method of mixing colors. So, you know when Goldilocks went into the house and she sat in 3 chairs, and the first chair was too hard, and no, wait, the first chair was too big, then it was too little, and then just right. You get it. The oatmeal was, or gruel, or porridge, it must have been porridge, was too hot, too cold, and then just right. Anyway, when you mix a color, chances are it's not going to be right. Okay, so you're going to hold it up, check it, and you're going to ask yourself, well, what is it to? And this is still too orange. And the opposite of orange on the color wheel is blue. So it's very important that when you're painting that you have your complements memorized. Okay, so basically you need to know that the opposite of orange is blue, opposite of red is green, and the opposite of yellow is purple. All right, so that's really, really super basic stuff. The other thing is it's usually best to start with a lighter color and add a darker color to it. I'll show you that with the next color I mix. Okay, so now let's see how this color is going. All right, still a little bit too orangey. It needs to be a little bit colder red. I think I'm going to add all that in, and I think I'm going to add a little bit of cadmium red in there to see what that looks like. And that looks like a better color. Now I'm going to need quite a bit of it, so that's why I'm mixing this much. All right. That's looking better. All right, that's probably close enough, although it could be a little bit darker, so I'm going to go with a little bit more blue, because I don't want to add any more brown to it. All right, that looks good. Okay, next color. Let me choose a lighter color to show you how to mix that. The next color I'm going to mix would be this color right here. Okay, so in order to paint this, right, you can see that I mixed the darker of all of these values right in here, right? So this is like really saturated, really dark. This in here is going to have a little bit more orange in it. This is going to have a little bit more of yellow ochre in it. And actually I just changed my mind, and I'm going to show you how to mix that color. Okay, so now this color, what I can do is I can take, and I still need more paint here. So let me put more out and get more red. So the reason I'm going to mix that color is I'm going to need a couple different colors in here to be able to do this gradation. And I'm not going to mix like every single different color. Like if I kept clicking like that's that color, and you can see this little white circle will show you like how dark it is. So it's really low, it's pretty dark. Here it's going to get lighter. Watch the little circle go up, okay, or over. There you go, it went up a little bit. So what that tells me is all this area is pretty dark. It's just that this is a little bit lighter, a little bit more orangey, and that's a little bit of a sort of a deeper rusty kind of color right in there. Now, when I go to make this lighter color, right? Let's make that color right there. All right, when I go to make it, I already have a bunch of this color mixed up. And so I can take some of that, but then I'm going to start with some yellow ochre. Okay, so I'm going to start with some yellow ochre, and I'm going to add some of that color to it. Now, it's always a good idea when you're mixing colors to start with a lighter color and then add the darker color to it. Add it gradually, otherwise you end up wasting a lot of paint. Let me say that again. It's a good idea when you're mixing colors to start with a lighter color and then add the darker color to it. You will waste less paint. Okay, let's see how I did there. I'm just gonna mix that together. That's pretty good, but it's a little bit too warm. I need to dull that down. It's a little bit too intense a color. And so the opposite, this is kind of an orangey brown right now. So the opposite of that is going to be blue, and maybe I'll throw a little bit of that blue violet in there, because that's a nice opaque color, and I like what it, I actually really like what it does when I'm dulling the browns down. And I don't really think of these as so much as browns. It's more like these colors are like, they're dark, but they look like different colors. Like they just are very, very toned down. So I don't really think brown so much. I really look at the different shades of brown in terms of like, are they yellowish brown or orangey brown or reddish brown or bluish brown or purplish brown, or like there's so many different neutrals, it's crazy. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna leave that for that. All right, now I'm gonna finally mix that one for you. Okay, so you're looking at that, you're thinking orange, right? So right here is the hue, okay, that's based on. There's quite a lot of white, but then it's toned down. It's a tone. So what I'll do is start with this orange, which is really a little bit of a reddish orange, and obviously I'm going to add white to it, but I'm going to need to tone it down to make it a little bit duller. Okay, so here I go, and I'm going to need quite a bit of that. Now I already painted that area here. So I already mixed this before, and I will be ending up over here, so I'll need some of that over there. So I need a fair amount of that paint. So I'm going to grab some of this white, okay, and I'm going to grab a good bit of orange, and I'm going to grab some of this Venetian red as well. Maybe not that much. After a while, when you use the colors, you will discover how much of them you can use, okay? So that Venetian red is super saturated, which means you don't need to use a whole lot of it. Okay, so here we go. I have mixed this beautiful shade, oh my gosh, that's so pretty, of orange, and I'm going to test it, and I knew it would be way too bright, okay? So that's way too bright, so I need to tone it down. I always like to have tea next to me when I'm painting. It's very, it's soothing, and it's really nice. Okay, now, here's the deal. This color is the one color I was telling you about before. So it's the violet gray, okay, because I think I called it a different color before. But this violet gray, Old Holland, is really good to tone that orange down. So I'm going to add just like a little bit right now. And so let's see what happens. I can always add more. I don't think I added enough, but let's check it. I kind of want to add some of that brownish color too, so I scraped up some of that. Now, when I mix my colors initially, I don't kind of worry about where I'm putting them on my palette, but then when I kind of scrape them off at the end of the day, I get them lined up by color. I like things nice and neat and organized. It's still duller, it's a little darker, and I think more Venetian red. So duller, darker, more Venetian red, but I just don't want to overdo it. And so here we go, maybe a tiny bit of ultramarine blue. Okay, let's see what I did now. You know, it's funny, you look at it and you think, oh, that looks like a light peach, but when you're mixing it up, it's actually quite a bit darker than you might think. Okay, let's see what that looks like. And as I'm painting, I can always add some white to it to make it lighter too, as I go along. All right, what do we have there? All right, oh, that's pretty close. That's pretty close. I feel like it needs like a tad of Naples yellow. That's a nice opaque yellow. Seem to want a little bit more yellow. Now this isn't a real bright yellow. It's just this really great opaque yellow. You have to be careful not to use too much white when you're mixing your paint. I don't use white straight either, because very rarely will you see any color that's straight white. For instance, this color here, it's really a little bit yellowish. You know, you would think it was white, but it has a slight little bit of yellow in it. And if you use too much white when you're mixing your colors, sometimes they can end up looking kind of chalky. So I'm going to avoid that. All right, on the wrong one. Yay, fine, that is close enough. Now, if I was going to be painting this whole area, right, I mix that color, I mix that color. This color I will kind of mix on the fly as I'm painting, but the other color I would really need would be that color. Now, as I'm preparing to work on this area, I would also be mixing these colors. I would probably mix that color, this color there. But for now, for this demonstration, I'll just work on that color right there. So there that is. And as you can see, it is somewhere between this color and that makes sense because it looks like a transparency, right? So I don't really want to use up any more of that paint in there. So I could, you know, take some of this and use that to make mixtures, but I have a feeling I'm going to use a lot of this paint. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take a little bit of the raw sienna. I'm going to take some Venetian red, used up all my orange. Got to get more orange out there. So I've got this wonderful Williamsburg cadmium orange. It's really beautiful color. Okay, and I know it's going to be kind of dull because you can see down here it's tone, you know. Well, I'll mix this up first, and I already have some raw umber in there, which will tone it down. All right, let's have a look at this. Let's see what's happening. So there we go. Too dark. Okay, so like I said, the good old Goldilocks method of mixing colors. Hold up a color, whether you're using a photo to work from, or if you're looking at a screen. It just works really well to check and see what color you made. All right, it's like a wee bit intense, and it could be a little bit more opaque, maybe slightly, a little tiny bit more yellow. You know what? I'm feeling a little bit of yellow ochre. I grabbed a tiny bit of the Naples yellow as well. Okay, mix that around. Okay. And let's have a look at that. Okay, yep, that's just fine. I think that's all I'm going to show you in this video. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that, and please feel free to leave me a comment.